Hi again, everybody. It's day 20 of my vlog, the 20th one I've done. And it's more than that, days of being in quarantine or whatever they call this. Today's going to be part 2 of the Sabbath Psalm, Psalm 92. That actually starts with a psalm or song for the Sabbath day. This psalm describes the purpose and the benefits of the Sabbath, keeping the Sabbath. The first 3 verses call us to be thankful for all the good things God has done, for his character of reliability and of dependability. Or as verse 2 puts it, his faithfulness. And verse 1 adds to the commandment of the Sabbath, sing praises to God. Be thankful and sing praises for all that he's done. Now, verses 4 through 7 brings us to the theme of work, which is normally where most of us go when we think about the Sabbath, is don't work. Don't work on the Sabbath. And that is what the commandment says. 6 days shalt thou work, and 7th you don't work, you Sabbath. So let me read those verses for you. For thou, Lord, hast made me glad through thy work. I will triumph in the works of thy hands. O Lord, how great are thy works, and thy thoughts are very deep. This psalm takes us to the theme of work, but it does not take us to stopping from our work. It takes us from the letter of the law to the spirit of the law, which is actually stated in Exodus 20, verse 11, where it says that God worked 6 days and rested the 7th day. That is the explanation for why God gave us the commandment. I've said before that I've often not understood the Sabbath day commandment. Well, I'm understanding it better. Very thankful for it. Its whole purpose is centered around God's work. And so this psalm actually tells us, instead of focused on our work, it says God worked. Thy work, thy work, thy work, over and over again in the psalm. And then in verse 4, he says, for thou, Lord, hast made me glad through thy work. I will triumph. All my benefit that I'm going to get out of life comes through God's work, through the works of God's hands. So here's the point. He says, oh Lord, how great are thy works, in verse 5. Here's the point. We stop working so that we can see what God is doing. We think it is us, by our hard work, that brings us prosperity. And no, we triumph through the works of God's hands. The blessing of the Lord, it makes rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. That's Proverbs 10 verse 20. Ecclesiastes 5:19 makes it very plain that the enjoyment of our work and the gift of work and the benefits of work, it's all from God. Let me read the verse. Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor. This is the gift of God. That's a Sabbath day verse. We stop and enjoy the gift of God on the Sabbath day. If God doesn't bless your work, it's in vain. You can work it's like trying to pump out the Titanic. It's going down. So on the Sabbath day has for its purpose to teach us to trust God, his work in us, his work through us, and his work for us. By him only is fruitfulness, according to Psalm 92. We need to remember that 1 Corinthians 3:9 says this, we are laborers together with God. And then we are his husbandry. We are his, we are his field. We're his building. So the Sabbath is to teach us who's in charge, who makes it all work, and it's God. Um, Psalm 50:22 and 23 tells us very plainly, ye that forget God, remember. Don't forget. That's what the Sabbath is about, is remembering God. And then he says, remember this, whoso offers praise glorifies me. So on the Sabbath, it's about praising God and making God look good. So on this Sabbath period, this prolonged Sabbath that we are experiencing, trust God. Trust his work. Trust his loving kindness and his faithfulness. May God bless you on this Sabbath period.